Hola software lovers, and today we continue with a new initiative organized by Apiumhub interviewing software community leaders. And today we have a pleasure of having a face-to-face interview with Henriette Hettinga, a software community project manager called CodeWomen. Thank you very much for making it today, Henriette. It's a pleasure to have you here with us, and we would be delighted to know more about you, about your expertise, and about your community, how it all started.
Oh, that's a long story. Thank you for having me here. Quickly about me, I've got a background in management, and a bit late in life I discovered coding. And that immediately grabbed my attention. I was fascinated, and I messed around a bit with it, self-learning, Python, other stuff. And then I got a grant for a bootcamp, to my surprise. And I did a bootcamp web development. And then COVID started, and I volunteered with an organization called Migracode that offers a free bootcamp to refugees and migrants. I thought it was a very good cause. I can do something during COVID. The lessons were all remote, of course, and I became a supporting instructor. And during those lessons, that's the link to CodeWomen, I just noticed that the women wouldn't ask questions. And there were many male students very present, asking questions, saying things. The women they were quiet. So I asked some of them out of class, like, why don't we hear you? And they would say, yeah, I don't know, maybe it's a mistake to do this, maybe it's not my world. These guys, they know everything. And I thought, well, there's something lacking here. It caters more to the male way of studying, of being present, and the women need a bit of extra confidence, extra attention. So I got permission from the bootcamp to do something extra for the women, and I started sessions on Sunday afternoons, once a month, get them together and just explain, okay, you've borrowed this laptop from the bootcamp to work with. If you work in a terminal and you use commands, it will not destroy this laptop. You cannot really do something wrong there. And everybody who starts coding struggles with this. If it's not your laptop, it's even more difficult to find the program, to find your files. Don't be afraid. And the fact that they hear that from each other, they share the same insecurities, that helped them. And some of them were completely new in Barcelona because they're migrants. And for them also, it became a bit of a community. They learned, they got a network, they got some new friends. And that was during COVID. So we were 6 to 8 women. But then COVID, the regulations and everything died down a bit. And we got more and more women asking if they could join. So mid-2021, this is about a year after I started, we decided to open up the CodeWomen activities to women from other bootcamps, etc. At that time, I think we had 40 women in our network, and now we have over 600. So it has grown enormously. And to me, that's great, but it also shows how much of a need there is for a space for women to get some extra help, to share their experiences, to learn more, to build a network. And I'm very happy that CodeWomen can be that place.
Of course. Well, thank you for this initiative. I remember when we hosted the event, how many women actually came here, and all of them showed this enthusiasm and this willingness to explore this industry and grow and share their experiences and their ideas. It's,
absolutely.
It's absolutely brilliant what you're doing. So thank you. And in terms of this diversity issue, right, in this industry here in Barcelona, what insights could you share? What maybe best practices you have seen that has worked? Maybe you could share some recommendations to your peers. So what all companies could do to actually make an impact and to to help this issue of diversity and have more women and just contribute to this issue that exists, unfortunately, nowadays.
Yep. I think the first question, of course, is where does the issue come from? And I think it has a lot to do with the fact that the tech world is seen as male and is also for women who work there, and they experience it as male. I read a McKinsey report on women in the workplace last year, and the figures are terrible. I mean, it's like 32% of women in tech are usually the only woman in the room, either in their team or their department. It's just them. I sometimes give the example to men when it's sort of about why is this a problem? Can you imagine that you would teach in a school and all your colleagues are female, and Friday afternoon they want to celebrate Finde and they will say, "Hey girls, oh, and Peter." Because that's the reality. It's all, "Hey dudes, hey guys, oh Anna, you can come too." It's not a nice environment to work in. There was a summit in Lisbon last year, the Summit on Web Development, and they did a report on the state of gender equity in tech. Over 50% of the women working in tech who were interviewed for that report said they experienced harassment in their job. That's like half, over half. They are working harder than their male colleagues to get noticed, to get promotion, to get their work acknowledged. Over 70% of the women said that was the case. Almost 40% says, "I have to choose between career and a family. The moment I want to start a family, my work ends. I cannot work these overtime hours. I have to share between what I can do for my job and what I need to do for a family." It's just not possible to combine that because it's expected that you work overtime and that you work crazy hours. And for the men who usually have a partner at home when they have a family, it's not so difficult. But for the women, it's completely different. The good thing is that about 40% of the women, a bit more I think, they said their company is doing something about it. And I think there you can see many, many initiatives. It goes even towards one company that I know that started childcare in the building itself, which is a fantastic initiative because that means that the women don't have to run around picking up their kids and doing shopping and whatever. For them, it would be like an ideal situation. But I only know about one company that does that.
Is it based here in Barcelona?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Nice initiative.
That's really great.
Yeah, I know that also a lot of companies actually support and pay for kindergartens or babysitters. But yeah, still like this time like to get to the office and go back. So you kind of like lose this 2 hours. But yeah, babysitter, just, childcare, right? Close to you, that if you feel like you need to visit your child, very, very nice. I will discover it. I'm super curious.
Well, I think also COVID did a lot of good in that way. Something good comes out of something terrible. But the whole remote working, which was of course already accepted in tech, but has now become the norm. And if you have to combine a family with a job, it's ideal. It's really fantastic because you can get your work done whatever hour it suits you. And for women, that has been a great improvement, I think. But still, I think that as long as the male is the default in companies, it will be very difficult for women to get acknowledged, to get noticed. Women are not allowed to speak up because then they're the bitch. But if they don't speak up, they don't get noticed. And I know that from my own experience because I do speak up and I organize and I get things done. But it's not always appreciated either by women or by men if you are making, moving forward like that. And I think for many women, it's sort of, how do I behave? What is expected of me? And that is not easy because the whole tech industry is geared towards men and hackers and all that stuff. I think for a company, one hacker in the team is fantastic. but no more, because you need people on the team who can collaborate, who can work together, who don't necessarily want to be the top dog, but want to get something done, stick to deadlines, anticipate problems. Women are very good at that, because they usually have to manage several things at the same time and multitask. And that means that they feel that they have to plan very carefully, that they really have to meet those deadlines, because they know what's going to happen if they don't. And I think they're a lot more responsible. And if companies value that part, not just the tech part, to me, in a company working in tech, I think half of the value of an employee is the fact that they can do other things than just the coding. And
soft skills, right?
Exactly. Yeah, I hate the word soft skills. I think it's professional skills.
Professional skills.
I think being able to communicate well and clear and inclusive also, not like keeping people out of important meetings and stuff. Collaborating, teamwork, being, I don't know, have a bit of empathy if you know that somebody is struggling personally in a private situation or whatever. There's a lot of value there, and that often doesn't get acknowledged. And it is expected of women. As soon as there's something about team building or an office happening, everybody looks at the women like, okay, who's going to organize? And why is that? Are men not able to do that? Or is it just the expected role pattern? And then, they're the women again, they're very good at this. But they're also very good at that on the job, this whole organizing bit. And that should be valued more, I think, because just with the techies, you won't make the products that the user need.
Okay, thanks for sharing. And and I was also wondering, right now you're really into events, right? So you organize them on a regular basis and every time like in different place. So how do you see it? Do companies here in Barcelona are actually willing to contribute, willing to help? Or do you feel like that you are struggling in this sense, that actually you need to knock on the door and find collaborators, or it's kind of you receive them like organically, and once people and companies get aware of you, they actually reach out to you directly? So how is it? What is the process? How do you see it?
It's a bit of both. I was surprised last year in January when a company reached out, Free Now, the taxi app. The lady there had heard of CodeWomen. She was enthusiastic and she said, we want to support this. And I'd never really thought about being hosted by companies, also because we'd just gone through this whole COVID thing. But we were growing and we needed more space than we were having at the time. And it was fantastic, and it was so welcoming and interesting also to be in that company. And you can imagine that some of the women, well, they have never been in a tech company, but even some of them have never been inside a company because they have been a receptionist, or they have even been writing for Glovo. And for them, it's like an eye-opener to walk around in a tech company and think, hey, maybe this is my future. These are the kind of places I could find a job. So that's really interesting, and that is a real added value for our participants. And last year, in my experience, somehow it's like a snowball effect. Companies saw posts on LinkedIn that other companies hosted us through our volunteers. We've got a big group of volunteers, and they would say, hey, I want my company to host. I'm proud of what we're doing. I'm proud of my company. I want you to see it. So that was also really nice. And we've got 4 or 5 bootcamps that we collaborate with, and they also host us, because one event every month is on Sunday. So we need a place to be hosted. The other events are on Mondays, so that's easier. But in total, I think we work together with like 24 companies and bootcamps.
Oh, wow.
So it's growing this year already. There are new companies reaching out. And that's really fantastic. I think for a company, it's a very good way to get their women developers involved, because they can be a coach during our sessions, maybe try out how it is like to mentor a person, to offer very practical help, which is important if you want to grow in your career. And I think for a company also, the same experience that you have, all these women, all this talent, it exists, which is also very important, because companies need to be aware. on the one hand, you have the story that it's difficult to find women, but they are out there. It's just, how do you reach them? And I think CodeWomen has grown into a unique community where you can reach that audience. We have the women, we can approach them, we post job vacancies in our Slack channel, and they will respond and they will ask for information. So it's a very direct link with the people you want to reach out to. Yeah. What CodeWomen would need, and what we are working on for this year, is more sustainable partnerships. That we say, okay, at a certain point, we also need the money to fund the position of project manager. And it has become more professional now, with somebody working on it full time, plus an assistant. Maybe we would even need somebody else extra if it continues to grow like this. Sure. And that is where the funding comes in, because you cannot expect people to do that in their free time.
Yeah, absolutely. No, actually, I remember when we reached you, maybe it was like around October or so, when we discovered your community and the events that you organized. I remember we were like, okay, we should host this event. We should meet you. And I remember your message like, hey, actually we're fully booked till like end of December. And we were like, oh my God, like you organize events on a weekly basis and you're fully booked like for 2 months. So it really gave us like a good impression. And I mean, for like first year of this initiative, and I think this is a success. And when all those people, all those women came on a rainy day, because normally when we organize meetups and there is a rainy day, the attendance drops, but significantly. And we were like, okay, so almost nobody will come, because it was, remember the day? It was horrible. And then so many actually women came, and we were like, oh my God, we didn't expect that. So this is really a true motivation. And
it's incredible. We have an event on Sunday about digital sustainability. All 50 tickets are gone, and I've got 18 women on the waiting list. And it's just, I also did not expect that, because it's a topic that's a bit different. But many women are interested, and that's really great. But like you said, with the hosting, it was a bit overwhelming at the time when the company started approaching us. We had an event on Sundays where we go into a topic a bit deeper, more of a learning event, and one coding session on a Monday evening. And we even added another coding session every month, so that we're doing now 3 events, because so many companies wanted to host us. And I didn't want to disappoint them because the companies are important for us for the growth. We have so many talented women, and they come into these companies like here, and we can say, okay, if you have a vacancy, have somebody from HR and join us and discuss what is possible. And that's really great. Of course, we only want women there. That is a bit of something I should talk about, because I did get a couple of remarks from men that it's sort of exclusive. I think it's very good to be aware of how difficult it is to be a woman in tech. I talked earlier on about the sexism and the harassment that they experience. To be in a safe space with women, only women, where you can really vent frustration, where you can discuss your experiences, where you know there is no intimidation, people will understand and will support you. That makes a huge difference. Then also we have women from countries, Muslim countries, who may not be coming if they are in a space with men who are not family. So there's also a cultural aspect. If you talk about the diversity of our community, we have to take that into account. There are trans women in our community. They may not be super enthusiastic about having men around. For them also, it's a very safe environment. So that's important. And I think, again, for men, it is not easy to imagine what a difference it makes. If you don't have to feel like you have to be somebody else. And it's unfortunately the situation that it is, but there's a different dynamic if there are only women in the room.
And coming back to this issue, because currently there are a lot of debates on this topic on social networks. So the point that you just mentioned, so that they have a safe place, that's totally understandable. But how do you see the process later on when they start working for a company and there are probably maybe 1% of companies that are just like women, let's say 100% women companies. So how do you see this transition? So right now they're attending the events, right now they're growing, right now they're learning. But then how do they see the incorporation to the company where they would need to work and with women and with men and with, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, hopefully also with women, because if you're the only one in the department, it's really difficult.
Yeah.
No, I think that the companies are being more aware. I think there are very simple things to maybe raise the awareness in your company by just having a workshop on it and you know, have some examples of how it would be like if you're the only one in the room. It's the same for colored people. If you're the only black person in the room also, it's intimidating. And we do not have that experience a lot. But I've been for work to China, and there you all of a sudden notice how it is to be white, Western European and tall. You stand out. And I think that's a feeling that many women who are underrepresented in a certain area of work feel. If you are the only black person among white people, if you are a person with a special need and all the rest of the people go to team building and play football, that can be very difficult. And the same goes for women. So I think awareness raising, doing a workshop, giving some of these examples, and that's it's not enough to just give a woman a job in a tech company. Also the company will have to make space in both the thinking as also in the practical matters. But it's difficult, of course, if women are still perceived as different, to treat them in the same way. And that's something that probably will grow over time with more women being in a company. I think for companies it would be very important to at least make sure that nobody is the only woman in the room. At least have a bit more diversity. And it's a bit of a contentious issue, but with recruitment, you can say we want diversity, so we are going to really focus on that and recruit more women.
Yeah, I remember, well, right now actually, when we welcome new female developers to our team, and of course we always talk about the subject of diversity, of how was their journey, of how many women there were when they were actually studying software development, and many of them were actually telling us that there were just only one woman per class, and of course it was at the beginning it was weird, but then they were kind of used to it. But right now, what they're telling us that the situation is changing. So more and more companies become aware of it. More and more events actually support diversity, give more tickets to females so that they can participate more. There are more events, just like you said, right, to educate. A lot of events dedicate tracks to speak about this issue and show facts and just like to raise up this opportunity and talk more about it. And when girls come to Apiumhub, they're like, oh, because I was always concerned, like, do we have let's say not enough women, but well, it's still not 50-50 unfortunately in Apiumhub. But every year we have more and more women, and they stay with us, thanks God.
That's also very important. Yeah, absolutely.
And right now, actually, we have, I don't want to lie, but like around maybe 15 female developers here, and the most important is that they feel safe. They say like, hey, actually that's something uncommon that in our previous companies where we have been working, there were not so many people, not so many women. I was like, not so many, so we are actually better than.
You're doing well.
I was like, oh wow, that's a nice surprise.
Well, but it's the reality, and it adds to the insecurity, of course, if you're with so few. So it's important that companies work on that. I think many companies go with the flow of saying that diversity and equality and inclusion are very important, but it cannot stop there. Something also has to happen. And I think also for the company themselves, it's important, because I know certain more senior developers who are in CodeWomen, and they will tell me how picky they have become about jobs. That they say, if I'm asked by a company to come and do an interview, because they are approached, because everybody needs senior people, they say, okay, I'm in this interview, and I will say, what is your company doing about diversity? Because show me. Otherwise, well, they don't say it like that, but otherwise they don't even want to work there. Because they want a company to walk the talk. They want to be able to be proud of a company. And I think that makes sense, because your work is a big part of your life. And you want to have a company make a stand and not just the talk, but really show. And for many companies, I think collaborating with CodeWomen and being a hosting partner is a very good way and a relatively easy way to say, hey, we want to make this possible. We want to contribute to this initiative because we think it's important. And then if you become like also a funding partner, you get a more structural relationship, you are actively sharing job vacancies with us, you really make a difference as a company. And I think that is what the tech sector needs. It will not survive without the women. It's also because of the numbers. You just need more people, because every company needs apps, every company needs software, and somebody has to build all that. So you will need the women for that. But also I think that you cannot leave out sort of half the world population when it comes to creating products, creating software. This is the software that is used to manage school programs, to manage the tax services, to manage whatever. Half of the population not being involved in developing that is just ridiculous. You need the diversity also, because you will get better products. And I think for many companies that is clear. There have been so many mistakes with launches of products that did not reach the audience it was targeted on because of stupidities in the product. That you think, like a health app that didn't take into account that half of the population of the world has a monthly cycle that influences blood pressure, body temperature, whatever. Yeah, well, that product went down the drain because it wasn't useful for half of the audience it was produced for. Well, those kind of things cost a lot of money. So you better make sure that you develop your products with enough representation of the various users in your team.
Yeah. And thinking about last year, what would be your biggest highlight of last year? What have you learned?
One of the big highlights was our December end of year celebration. We had a special event to just celebrate how far CodeWomen had come. To be honest, it was never the plan. I just started as a volunteer for this small group of women because I recognized what they were struggling with, because I've been through the same. And I wanted to help them. And that has grown into this community in Barcelona that I'm very enthusiastic about, but it's been a bit of a surprise. And last year, at a certain point, with the 4 volunteers who are part of our team, we talked about doing a celebration, doing something special. We had 2 companies hosting us for the food and the drinks, which was fantastic. And of course, a company hosting us literally for the accommodation. And we had 70 women there being happy because they are part of the community, being happy about what we do with the organizing. We had this fantastic all-women band, and it was so festive. And that was something, for me, that was absolutely a highlight. It was like the year ended on a high. But otherwise, of course, it's fantastic that it's such a success. Like I said earlier, it's meeting a need, and that is incredible. How direct that affects the group of women that you think needs help. I think for CodeWomen, what is hugely important is that it is a bottom-up initiative. This is not something that is thought out somewhere in an ivory tower, like, okay, here's the membership fee and now we're going to do something for you. No, it's free. It's done by volunteers. I ended up becoming the project manager and now having a job. I would have never expected that. That was not my goal in any way. But the volunteers, they are the capital of the initiative. They are there, they help, they coach, they are accessible, and they're fantastic.
Okay. And thinking about this year, so 2023, what would you like to improve? What would you like to discover? What would you like to learn? So what is that goal or objective that you have in mind for this year?
What we want to improve is sort of think about where we want to go, because it has just overtaking us. It has gone so fast and so unexpectedly. So then we said, okay, we're not going to organize more than 3 events a month. It's not going to become even bigger. This is what we can manage. We want to see what we're doing, whether it still meets the expectations and what women need. We want to be more strategic, saying, okay, where are we going also with the collaborations? Like I said earlier, we will need funding to continue also in the future. So that is something we are working on already. I would like also to reach out more to other platforms for women that we've talked to Women in Data, for example. That's also important to see what those other platforms are doing, because quite a few of the women are also part of another platform, and it's nice to see if you can do things together, for example. We'd like to do another code challenge, which was sort of like a mini hackathon to make it easy for women to get the experience of doing a hackathon without being like 3 days and would maybe be a bit frightening to get into. And that would be very nice. We can do that a bit better than last year. That was the first time, and I think we underestimated how much work it is to organize that. But in the end, it went very well, but it was a lot of work. So we've learned from that, absolutely, that if you want to organize something bigger with volunteers, you have to start really on time, not to overburden people.
Sure.
But otherwise, I think we're doing very well. And one of the things that is really very dear to me is that women from companies that hosted us join us as a volunteer, both HR professionals and tech professionals. And these women are so enthusiastic about the initiative that they also want to be part of it in answering questions in the Slack channels or being on a panel when you talk about promotion and salary negotiations and sharing their experience. And that's really great, because that means that it's not, for the nice hosting of an initiative, but also being involved really because you believe in it. And that's very... very special.
Yeah, absolutely. And last question, but not least. So what are the current topics that interest you the most? The ones that you read about, the ones that you believe might have the biggest impact in the industry?
Well, I'm reading now the book Invisible Women, which is something that doesn't make you happy as a woman. Because it's very specifically looks at different areas of life, like working, medical care, childcare, all these things, and how the position of women is different than the position of men, how much harder women need to work, and how much that permeates in every area of society. The fact that, for example, commuting is seen as driving a car from home to work. So you need a parking space and you need roads, and that's it. While for the majority of people, public transport is commuting, or walking down the street is commuting. And then how much priority is given to commuting by car. And 78% of the people commuting by car are men, which means that quite a few people, women, who also have to run back and forth between children, shopping, work, etc., are also disadvantaged because for them public transport is available, but it's always cut in the budgets. Mm-hmm. So those kind of books don't make you happy. I think it is very good for making the women themselves aware that their feeling that society is not always ideal for them is not very strange, because there's a lot of research that shows that actually, yes, life is not so easy for them and that things could be improved, very practical things. So in that way, those books are very, very helpful. Mm-hmm. I think the whole artificial intelligence, of course, is going to be, again, a big topic this year. And I really hope that more women will get into that area, although mm-hmm. it's a more difficult area. You need a lot of mathematical insight for that. But it is so important, and the data that feeds artificial intelligence is so biased that it's almost dangerous, and that as long as those are, I'm sorry again, but as long as white, male, US or European developers are deciding which data to use to train artificial intelligence, you get the situation that people with a different facial expression, like maybe an Asian face, will not be recognized by a camera on a computer system, because the faces they've been trained with are different. And those are very scary developments. You think, okay, this data is not neutral. It's never neutral. There's like an inbuilt bias. And if you don't fit that bias, that picture that has been created, then what do? You don't fit the system anymore. And I think it's very dangerous. And another thing that worries me a lot is that kind of technology is used to build weapons, and that you are now in a situation where you are looking at autonomous killer weapons. So a weapon that can autonomously decide who to kill in a situation of combat. And I think that's absolutely incredible and absolutely horrible. So I would hope more diversity in tech would also mean that tech is used for good, instead of applied to these kind of areas that I think are absolutely horrible.
Yeah, let's believe that 2023 will bring us more positive results, and it will be a happier year than 2022, right? And let's hope that analyzing statistics of 2023, we will see an improvement in terms of numbers and in terms of percentages of how many women are actually in tech.
Yeah, absolutely.
And we will definitely contribute to it, right? And make everything possible to see this curve going up.
Absolutely. The only way is up.
Okay, Henriette, thank you very much for making it today. Thank you for sharing your insights, for telling us about your community. And let's see each other in the upcoming events. Let's stay in touch. It's always nice to get connected with other women in tech.
Yeah. Thanks for having me and for having this opportunity. And it's great to see that Apiumhub is so serious about getting the awareness about women in tech spread to other audiences. It's really important.
Thank you.